What's up guys, welcome to Voicey here. This is your host that made an extremely healthy breakfast of fried chicken and cream gravy, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge and r/Today I Fudged Up by eating that freaking abomination of a breakfast. Holy crap. Bad idea. I'm feeling it. That was heavy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story's called Tutor maliciously targeted students, so I collected an army and took him down. I'm not one for revenge personally, but this is something that happened to me in college, UK college, and it's something me and my friends love to reminisce over from time to time. A little background. I originally went to college intending to do maths and physics, but due to multiple factors, I didn't get the grades. So I jumped into IT instead, as the course didn't need grades as high, and there was a need for IT techs in the market. The class I ended up in had about 5 of us that honestly didn't need to be there. We were your ultra computer nerds and pretty much could answer every question from day one. Some tutors saw this and used us to help the other students who came to the class not knowing jack about computers. Then there was Malicious tutor. Our class was rather rowdy. A lot of male teens that most of them were there because, well, they didn't know what they wanted to do in life, and this gave them some grades for university or something. Most of them continued on to other college courses, then went to uni after. So on to the actual story. Me and my small group of friends often sat at the front of the class, often chatted while we worked, and generally liked to have a joke or two. But we did our work. Things started out with Malicious tutor telling us in the middle of class that we needed to stop talking and get on with our work. Okay, we were mostly joking then, so sure. Maybe we were distracting him. But as time went on, he would start to snap at us for talking about the work, moving to help each other with stuff we had already done or just knew more about, etc. The time that took the biscuit was about halfway through the first year, when on a day we were doing our assignments, which were due the next day, something most of our tutors let us do in class if we had all their works done, and the 2 of the group that knew the least needed some help finishing off their stuff. Most of us were working on other classes' work, the main lecture had been done and the other people in the class were not passing that assignment first time, as none of them were working on it even though the tutor had said, "Use this time to get it in, I don't want late assignments." They were instead laughing, joking, generally screwing around and playing games at the other side of the room where he couldn't see their computer screens. Malicious tutor turns to us and rather angrily, and only to our small group, demands that we shut up, sit at our own desks, and stop distracting him. We had been distracting him every lesson and were problem students. He wouldn't listen to any of us about helping each other or anything else. Wouldn't give the 2 that needed the help, and being nerdy, anxious teens, none of us wanted to risk a fail or anything for all the work if we just walked out. So we complied. After the class, we got to talking. One of the people in our group, who we referred to as Griff in college, had done another course before this one, and had many more tales of Malicious tutor. From losing assignments, to straight up refusing to help students with one occasion, breaking some code in a software assignment, then just shrugging and saying, "No, sorry," and leaving the student to fix it. It was here I decided to hatch a plan that snowballed far quicker than I expected. That night, I jumped on Skype, the VoIP of the time, hit up Griff and started writing down everything that had been happening. The seemingly innocuous harassment, the lack of assistance, the losing of assignments over the years, the specific targeting and ignorance of other people doing exactly what he was complaining about. Everything we could get our hands on. I then spent the next few days going around with a handcrafted letter to everyone that I knew had been affected, which, although everyone thought it might get them spoken to but nothing more, still signed it to say that they agree with what was written and that they can corroborate it. I then sent the letter straight up the ladder, not to his supervisor or manager or boss, but his boss's boss. This bit wasn't intentional, but it made it snowball, and although I had planned out a whole bunch of stuff to give evidence of his actions, I didn't need any of it. Within a few hours of depositing the letter, I was pulled from my class by the head of the department, who was assuring me that I wasn't in trouble and all the usual stuff. I was taken to her boss's boss, who said something along the lines of, "Oh P, Because of how you've approached this complaint, we have got to take it very seriously. Did all the people who signed this read it? Yes, tutor's manager's boss's boss. They did, and I believe other people have made complaints in the past too. Okay, OP. If you want, we can omit any names and this can be dealt with as an anonymous complaint, but that's up to you. I'm fine with my name being used, but I can't say for anyone else who signed the letter. Thank you, OP. If we need anything else from you, I'll be in touch. I can't say for certain, but I'm sure he called in every other person on the letter, and all of them asked to stay anonymous. By the next week, the tutor had disappeared, and no one knew why or where he'd gone. Even his colleagues didn't know exactly what had happened, only that he'd left. We didn't see him again that year. The head of the department was also changed. I'm assuming because she hadn't dealt with the complaints properly, but she just got a demotion. She was a good tutor. The next year, I was stood near the room where my next lecture was, and Malicious tutor walks down the corridor, making a point to stop in front of me, shake my hand, ask how my studies are going, and tell me if I ever need anything, I can come straight to him. Kinda creepy, and he never did it to any other students. I was never put in any of his classes again, even though he did lectures on my subjects. I found out before I finished my last year, he had been put on leave, then made to attend a training program and hit with the good old last chances warning, probably with attend this program or you're fired. Moral of the story? The pen is mightier than the malicious tutor's bark? And here we have included a crash course of UK nonsense terms. A lot of folk need some clarification on a few bits about tutors in college here in the UK, so I hope this helps. In the UK, tutor and teacher are essentially synonymous. You generally find teacher being used at a more young age, and then in college or higher, they start being referred to as tutors. Teaching assistants in the UK are referred to as just that, teaching assistants. The schooling systems, from what I saw in the comments, are actually quite similar, however, we label them differently. Below is a list of US schools as opposed to UK schools. Preschool equals nursery, kindergarten is reception, grades 1 through 6 is equal to primary school years 1 through 6. Some of these for the UK are instead split into infants, aka kindergarten is grade 1 and 2, and juniors grade 3 through 6. Grade 7 through 11 is equivalent to secondary school year 7 to year 11. Alright, for grade 12, in the UK, this is where standard education ends and we are allowed to decide how our education continues. Either in 6th form, college, which offers either A-levels or national diplomas, or an apprenticeship, a workplace education. Alright, for college, university is higher education and completely optional here. There's not a lot of pushing for people to go to uni overall, but it is encouraged. I'm sure we can all agree that the American system for labeling education is superior by far. Okay, but on a real note, bad teachers, they suck. I've had like 1 or 2 bad teachers. There is one that's kind of noteworthy, but I don't really want to bother going into it. It would just take too long to explain why she was a bad teacher, but I was a good student who worked hard and paid attention and was never disruptive. However, I did joke around, but reasonably so, but I was the one who ended up getting hated on by the teacher even though I was the only one who freaking did their work. Okay, anyways, I've said this like 80 million times, but most teachers I've had were like amazing people and, you know, they always acted like they were family and it was great. Teachers are cool, and I've said this before as well, they're also really hot. This story's called, My Uncle Took Revenge on Behalf of My Parents. As the title gives away, this didn't happen to me, but is the story of how my uncle avenged my parents. My parents had me when they were plenty young. They were not teens anymore, but had barely left that age bracket. My mom and dad met in college, that was also when they had me. So while my parents were in their courses, I mostly stayed with my grandparents. The whole family lives in the same area, and the college was not that far away. My parents were still young and liked to go out with friends on occasion. When the following happened, I was a few years old. On occasion, they frequented a bar. A drunk guy there groped my mom and did not take a no as a no. My dad intervened and stopped the guy, and half an hour later, all seemed forgotten. The music was loud, the bar crowded, and then someone in the crowd hit my dad with an empty glass pitcher square in the face. He was bleeding profusely and collapsed. But in the press, semi-darkness, and over the music, no one knew who did it. My dad got taken to a hospital. He had a broken nose and a heavy concussion. He also couldn't see who had attacked him, and his memory between the alcohol and being hit in the head was also very fuzzy. Of course, they had considered the guy who had harassed my mom, but they didn't know him, nor did they see him anywhere leading up to the moment, let alone have any evidence. So they pressed charges against unknown, but there was virtually nothing anyone could do. But then a few days later, the piece of crap that had harassed my mom approached her on campus. Turns out, he was in the same college as my parents. He made a few veiled comments and left little doubt that it had been him that hit my dad in the face. And the piece of garbage let my mom know that my dad, next time, should mind his manners, and that the little touching he had done didn't hurt anyone and wasn't that bad. And if he wanted to do it again, he would, and maybe more. And then the piece of crap went on his merry way. My mom was horrified, of course. She went home and told my grandparents, my dad, his parents, but no one could do anything. It was a he said, she said deal after all, and my mom hadn't even gotten the guy's name. My mom cried a lot at that time and didn't know what to do. She was also afraid of going to classes or out alone. I honestly only remember that time very scarcely. I was just a little kid, but I can remember my dad in the hospital and with his broken nose, and my mom crying a lot. My dad, of course, was just as angry and humiliated as my mom. No one knew what to do, and everyone was treading on eggshells around each other. But that is where my uncle enters the stage. My uncle, my mom's brother, lived on the other side of the country. He was a private investigator, and he was, of course, the last to hear the full story. But the moment he heard someone had threatened his little sister, he was on his way home. After hearing the full story, my uncle knew it would likely be hard to get the guy on the harassment, the assault, or the threats, having no evidence. My uncle had my mom point the guy out from afar on campus. It took a few days to find him, but then my uncle started to stalk that piece of human filth. My uncle took sick days, all his vacation, and invested every second possible to find out everything about the harasser. My uncle even approached the pig in another bar and became drinking buddies with him. Over several weeks, my uncle had uncovered all manners of illicit behavior: possession, consumption, and distribution of drugs, theft, and a few other misdemeanors and small-time stuff. And my uncle could have put him away for that. But my uncle always said, when asked about it, that if he had sent the butthole to prison, it would be for molesting my mom and hurting my dad. And that is what he did. One night, while out with his new buddy drinking, my uncle made the idiots piss drunk and they landed in my uncle's motel room. He got the harasser to incriminate himself on video, ratting off a list of illegal crap he was up to. My uncle had, of course, pretended to be a crook too. Among the stories Butthole told was a story of how he groped some chick and brained her dude with a pitcher of beer. Now, something needs to be said. In my country, recording someone in secret is illegal, and under some conditions, like if the police does it, it is not a permissible piece of evidence in court. But as a PI, my uncle knew the laws for that exactly. But paradoxically, the situation is different if it is not only audio but also video. And my uncle had the butthole on camera confessing. The next day, my uncle turned himself into the police with all his collected evidence, because secretly filming people was still a crime, though the video could be used as evidence in court, as my uncle was not affiliated with the police or any other governmental agency. When the criminal trial and the civil trial were over, the butthole got 6 years in prison and had to pay damages to my mom and dad. And my uncle got slapped with the equivalent of a $2,000 fine for secretly filming the butthole. Money well spent, he always said. I know there are a lot of stories of people having horrible older brothers that do horrible things to them, and they just end up being really bad people. However, I will say that most big brothers would do anything for their little siblings. I know I would, I know my older brother would, and apparently this guy gave up a lot to help his little sister and, get vengeance. And that is something that is deserving of everyone's appreciation and praise. This story's called Today I Fudged Up by Losing My Car Keys in an Adult Store's Video Booth Arcade. There is an adult video store on the outskirts of town, and I sometimes stop in on the way home from work to rub one out in the video booths. The place is pretty skanky and run down, to say the least, and it's in a rough neighborhood. But it is the only place like it in town and gives me a chance to get some relief from my dead bedroom. I went in, bought the obligatory tokens, and headed to the booth's arcade. There are about 20 booths, and usually several have broken monitors and or are too disgusting to use. It wasn't crowded, just a few shadowy guys lurking in the halls. I had to inspect 5 booths before finding one that was functional and didn't have genetic material on the seat. I dropped my tokens and took care of business. My visits always end the same. Within seconds of finishing, I feel repulsed and get out of the place as quickly as possible. I got to my car and fished through my pockets and couldn't find my key. Crap! I retraced my steps through the parking lot as panic set in, thinking maybe I had dropped it, but it wasn't there. Back in the store, I told the desk guy I lost something and he let me back into the arcade. The arcade is very dark, so I was using my cell phone flashlight to see the floors. I searched the booth I used, but it was not there, so I frantically checked the booths I had inspected and rejected. And the hallways, nothing. So now I'm really freaking out, but think, wait, maybe I just locked the keys in the car. So I run back outside, and my car is gone. Stolen. My heart was pounding and I felt dizzy. A wave of nausea hit me and everything turned white. The next thing I remember is laying on the asphalt with a dude tapping my chest and the back of my head throbbing. I had fainted in the parking lot. I began to come to my senses and insisted I was okay, but 911 had already been called and I could hear the sirens nearby. The fire and emergency medical services truck and 2 police cars arrived minutes later. While the medics checked my vitals, I told the cops what had happened, leaving out the detail of the happy ending, but they knew obviously, which was absolutely humiliating. They said they would file a stolen vehicle report and try to access lot surveillance video, and would contact me if there was news. I waived further medical treatments and got an Uber to take me home. The car hasn't been found. My soon-to-be ex-wife got a hold of the police report that said I lost my keys in the arcade. I had left that out when telling her, banished me to the guest room, called me vile, and said to never touch her again. Oh no. That's like the car theft equivalent of dying on the toilet with a turd prairie dogging halfway out your butthole. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.